Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining me once again today, and welcome back to Warhammer 2. So, this is once again a Skaven battle, but I am not playing the Skaven. I am actually playing my other favorite faction, the Greenskins. Oh, it's good to be back with my little green-skinned buddies. Well, not so little, they're actually pretty big. So, I have brought, this is basically a horde versus horde matchup here, which is pretty neat. So, we haven't seen the Greenskins in a while. Well, we've never seen them on my channel. So take a look. The Greenskins have the combination of relatively cost-efficient infantry, including the very, very powerful Black Orcs, cheap but ineffective archers. So decent for their cost, not very good. Cheap and relatively effective cavalry. Basically, that's a theme. In the Greenskins list, most units are cheap, relatively efficient, but not the most powerful individually. So, my army list, I'm going up against the Skaven, right? So I'm thinking I don't need anything terribly, terribly hard-hitting in the front line. Though I did want some heavy armor. So my front line is made up of 4 goblins. Just standard old goblins. I have put 1 chevron on them to give them a tiny, tiny little bit of leadership. Flanked by 2 orc biggins. Now biggins are decent infantry, 50 armor, high hit points, and they do have a small anti-large bonus, a bonus of 8. So they hit pretty hard, almost as hard as Saurus Warriors, and they have okay stats. They're not the very, very best, but they're also not the very, very most expensive, and that anti-large bonus can be decent. Goblins are actually, I've done testing on this, goblins beat clan rats, and they're less expensive, and they have a silver shield. So against the Skaven, I think goblins are very, very good at clearing out the frontline meat shield units, because goblins trade very effectively with clan rats. You really have to take plague mugs before you get something that will whip up on a group of goblins. And in the back I have my black orcs, 2 units of black orcs. Black orcs are very, very powerful. They've got a slight cost increase in this game. They're up to 1150 from 1100 in the first game. But that cost increase pays for 50 weapon strength. Massive, massive damage. Most of which is armor piercing. And of course they have 110 armor themselves and are immune to psychology. So black orcs very, 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 very solid. I have 2 goblin big bosses on spiders. These guys are cheap. I think they cost about 700 set up like this. I have given them the Sword of Anti-Heroes, which is a buff that lets them increase their own damage to pretty reasonable levels. They're fast, they're poisoning, they have a shield, and they provide an encouragement aura, which is really, really valuable for Greenskins. So I think these guys are a great pick. I have 3 bog standard goblin archers. Very commonly, you'll see the Greenskins taking the Rusty Arrows, the unit that has armor sundering on their ranged attacks. I have not bothered because the Skaven don't have much armor, so I'm not too worried about it. I have 1 unit of Orc Boarboy Biggins, the anti-large cavalry. If you look at them, I think Boarboy Biggins are very, very comparable to Cold One Riders. They have less armor by 30 points, which is pretty significant, and they don't have a shield. But they have similar speed, a little tiny bit slower, similar attack stats. They have a similar charge bonus even, but they have a pretty decent bonus versus large. Overall, I'm not sure, I haven't done that test, but if you ran a unit of Cold One Spear Riders or Cold One Knights into a unit of Boarboy Biggins, I'm really not sure who would win. I think the Boarboy Biggins are a little bit better because they don't rampage, which is nice. I also have, way out on each flank, I have 1 unit of Night Goblin Squig Hoppers, so 2 units total. These units are fantastic against the Skaven because they're very fast. They have speed 82, so they can catch runners and skirmishers. They have decent melee attack, not great, but okay melee defense and attack stats. Their charge bonus is not great, but the important thing is that they have a bonus versus infantry of 10. So their melee attack is actually 33 against infantry, and their damage is 37, most of which is armor piercing. For their cost, that makes them very, very good, especially because they also apply poison, so they debuff the enemy at the same time as they hit. And they're immune to psychology. So fear and terror don't affect them, which makes them startlingly effective. So I have brought 1 unit of those, as I said, on each flank, kind of hidden in the woods, trying to keep them from spotting them right off. And my army is led by Azhag the Slaughterer on Skullmuncha. Now this is kind of a risky pick. I wasn't sure about this one, but I went ahead with it because Lore of Death is so good, and having a flying, terror-causing lord is so good for the Greenskins specifically, because flying and terror are the 2 things they're most weak against, so having a little bit of their own really does help. I've also brought the Waaagh and Foe Seeker on him. I brought Purple Sun of Xerius, which is a great vortex now. Doom and Darkness to lower enemy leadership, because the Skaven are weak to that. Spirit Leech, and Aspect of the Dread Knight, which can make one of my infantry units cause terror for pretty much the same reason, because if they can cause terror, they might be able to rout a large amount of the Skaven infantry. A big amount. I'm losing my English. So, the Skaven army. The Skaven are led by Lord Skrolk. I've talked about Lord Skrolk. I feel he's kind of a suicide bomber. He really is not very tough, but he does have some very damaging abilities. He's brought Pestilent Birth, Plague, and Vermintide. So he'll be clearly summoning, and he's hoping to drop a Vortex on me. He's got the aura of Pestilence, Plague, Rash, Frenzy. He has not brought either of his damage abilities, interestingly enough. I feel like those abilities are a huge part of the usefulness of Lord Skrolk. Without them, I don't think he's really worth the cost. He's basically just a Plague Priest with a bigger melee attack at this point, and that's just not worth having for a Lord. In the front line, the Skaven have brought 2 Gutter Runner Slingers, so not the skirmishing, firewall-moving 360-degree arc skirmishers, the Slingers instead. That's another interesting choice. Might work out for him with the greater range, but I feel like the damage on Slingers is just a little bit too low for them to be really useful. They are fast, they can reposition and fire from the flanks, so it might work out. In his main line is Clan Rats and Clan Rat Spears. Over here in the flank, he has a very mixed infantry force. He has some of everything. He's got a unit of Plague Monk Sensor Bearers for armor piercing. He's got a unit of Plague Monks for general anti-infantry duty. He has his front line of Meat Shield we just went over. Over here, he has some Storm Vermin Sword and Shield, and some Storm Vermin Halberd. Now, Greenskins is one of the matchups where Storm Vermin Sword and Shield actually have a place. Since most Greenskin units do not have a lot of armor, Storm Vermin Sword and Shield can do a good job. I've done testing on this. Storm Vermin Sword and Shield actually beat Biggins pretty decisively. They even beat Savage Biggins, which cause a lot of damage, so they're pretty solid in this matchup. Storm Vermin Halberds, good for dealing with Orc Biggins, the Boar Boys, and the Squig Hoppers, since they are large. Other than that, there aren't a whole lot of Greenskin units that they do really well against. Black Orcs will eat them for lunch. We have some Skaven Slaves and Skaven Slave Slingers back here. 1 unit of Poison Wind Globadiers. A unit of Rat Ogres. Those are pretty dangerous because they do a lot of armor-piercing damage. A Warp Lightning Cannon and a Plague Claw Catapult. Now, for my money, I think in pretty much any situation where a Plague Claw would be good, a Warp Lightning Cannon would be better, but the Plague Claw is better at shooting past intervening terrain, so we'll see. So, let's go in. So we're both kind of looking at each other's armies. Immediately, my Biggins start taking Slinger Fire. And they're taking a little bit of damage. He's also targeting his Warp Lightning Cannons on the Biggins, but that's okay. These are a cheap unit. You know, they're only 800. I'm sorry, they're 800 now. It's okay. He's focusing a lot of fire on them. I'm swinging my Night Goblin Squig Hoppers up along the flanks in an effort to get alongside him, and the whole army is just rushing forward. In particular, I am rushing my Goblin Big Bosses forward to trigger skirmishing on the Gutter Runners to force them back. I was betting on the fact that he would have kept them on skirmish mode. He's shooting at my Black Orcs and Archers now, which is a good target, because the Black Orcs you definitely want to kill before the engagement if at all possible, and that's pretty decent damage. My Goblin Big Bosses are moving in a pack. He's got his Poison Wind Globadiers on fire at will. They don't have much ammunition, and some of it is now being wasted shooting at the Big Bosses, which is just fine. I dropped a little Purple Sun action here just to kind of cause some damage, and look at that. It did exactly what I was hoping for. Got right into the Slingers, got into the Globadiers. That did some work. You can see Azhag got 53 kills off of that. He's getting some Slinger Fire. It's not very dangerous for him, but I'm pulling back because at this point, I did not know that Skrolk didn't have his damage abilities. I just saw Skrolk and I went, oh crap, he's going to have the Liber Bubonicus and all that. So I'm pulling back to avoid that. My Archers are starting to fire on the Storm Vermin with Sword and Shield. Those are actually pretty much the worst target, so I should be retargeting them soon. Over here, my Goblin Big Bosses are holding up a big portion of the enemy army. This one is routing because the Rat Ogres have gotten a hold of it, but still. My Night Goblin Squig Hoppers are trying to swing around the flank, but unfortunately, this was a big mistake on my part. I didn't realize they'd reached their target yet, so I left them sitting here for a minute. And the Plague Monks got a hold of them, so that was a problem. Over here, these Orc Boar Boy Biggins have swung wide, but I don't want to send them into this fight in the woods. The Night Goblin Squighoppers have gotten in, and they're actually doing pretty good damage because they're fighting Gutter Runner Slingers, so they're doing well for themselves. But they are large units in the woods, which is a problem. Over here, the Storm Vermin Halberds have gotten into my Biggins, and they are losing because they are being flanked by all this archer fire, and the Biggins are a pretty solid unit that aren't terribly well armored, so the armor piercing of the Storm Vermin Halberds doesn't matter too much. Azhag has dropped a Waaagh here to buff my goblins to very ungoblinly levels, so they're massacring some Skaven slaves. Over here, my Black Orcs have gotten into these clan rats and are chewing their way through them. Another Purple Sun has gone down and massacred a whole bunch of Gutter Runner Slingers. More Black Orcs and Orc Biggins, supported now by the Boar Boy Biggins with a flanking charge, are fighting off the Rat Ogres and the Plague Monk Censer Bearers. The Censer Bearers do want to be fighting the Black Orcs, but they will lose that fight, typically. Over here, I've realized what is happening to my Night Goblin Squighoppers, pulled them away only to get them charged again by summoned clan rats that I didn't quite notice in time. Over here, my Night Goblin Squighoppers, these Squighoppers have routed off, but they will be coming back. Fighting in the woods is very, very bad for large units, so that was a problem. Some summoned Plague Monks are charging into the Black Orcs, who have now gotten into the artillery and are trying to shut down the Warp Lightning Cannon. Azhag has landed over here to chase off some of those slingers because they are very annoying. Over on this side, my goblins were routed off by the Storm Vermin, but the Storm Vermin are now getting kited by my Goblin Archers with some Goblins in support. So the Storm Vermin are trying to charge in, they're intercepted by the Goblins, and then the Goblin Archers are going to pull away a little bit, turn around, and start shooting. Over here, the Night Goblin Squighoppers, 41 kills, very respectable. The summons disintegrated before they could really hurt them. They're just kind of waiting right now because I am busy microing other parts of the battle. Azhag has landed, supporting the Black Orcs, who have gotten a pretty respectable kill count themselves. And the Biggins, shutting down the enemy artillery. I am a little bit surrounded at the moment by the Plague Monks, but the terror from Azhag is driving off all of these units, and now Azhag is trying to get out of the way to go after the Poison Wind Globadiers. Over here, these Squighoppers have returned, I haven't quite noticed yet. And this fight, not going great. My Goblin Big Boss has routed. I think this one either routed or died. My Boar Boy Biggins are pulling out and going off to support Azhag, while the infantry finish up the Censer Bearers and sweep into this pocket of Slingers and Plague Monks. The Boar Boy Biggins get a nice little side charge here into the Clan Rats, doing massive, massive damage. Azhag, meanwhile, has driven off the surviving Rat Ogres and the Poisonwind Globadiers in conjunction with these Squighoppers. 70 kills and climbing. They rack up kills super, super quick against squishy Skaven infantry. In the back lines, my Archers and Goblins are finishing off the Storm Vermin Sword and Shield. They got a respectable number of kills, but most of those kills are Goblins. So really didn't pay off because they got sucked into a slap fight with Goblins. The Storm Vermin Halberds are coming back in an effort to try and finish this off. My Biggins are finally routing with 94 kills, but my Squighoppers are just running wild in the back lines, taking out units left, right, and center. Goblin Big Boss is coming back. My Squighoppers also came back, got a few more kills, then routed again because they charged into the woods. Still 45 kills on Plague Monks. I'll take it. My Black Orcs have now gotten into the Plague Monks, and they are going to do fantastic. Over here, it looks like another summon is coming down to flank my Biggins. That's okay. My Boar Boys are rallying, my Black Orcs are routing, but so are all the Skaven units in the middle. My Squighoppers, meanwhile, are once again just racking up the kills, while Azhag goes off to chase away some Gutter Runner Slingers. In the back, we have some units coming back. That's Warp Lightning Cannon crew. Don't need to pay too much attention to them. My Archers are actually going to be quite important. I still have all three and in pretty decent health. This one is pretty badly damaged. That one's a little bit chewed up. But they all still have quite a bit of ammunition left, so I can get a lot of supporting fire off of them. Goblins are routing, but they keep routing and coming back, just like the Skaven do, actually. My Night Goblin Squighoppers are at 140 kills and still climbing. He's trying to recrew his artillery, which I really can't let happen, because if those Plague Claws start firing again, that could be a problem. See, 87 kills on them, 55 on the Warp Lightning Cannons. They are quite effective. He's going to bring up some summons and send out some Skaven slaves in an effort to chase off my Goblin Archers, but they're just going to start kiting back once again. Over here, Azhag's still chasing off these Gutter Runner Slingers, trying to make sure they don't come back. The Night Goblin Squighoppers finally rout with 174 kills against Storm Vermin Halberds, too. that armor-piercing anti-infantry damage is bonkers. My Orc Boarboy Biggins are helping clean up some more Gutter Runner Slingers. I've got some more Poison Wind Globadiers coming back. Skaven Slave Slingers coming back. Battles between the Greenskins and the Skaven become very chaotic very quickly because of all the units routing and returning and routing and returning. The Skaven Slaves are routing. My Goblin Archers are still in good shape. The summoned Clan Rats are disintegrating, and now they're taking Archer Fire, so they're going to go away in a big hurry. Over here, the Squig Hoppers are coming back for more. They've rallied. They still have 16 models, so they're still capable of doing a lot of damage. The Storm Vermin Halberds are coming after them. Azhag is coming back. He's chased these Gutter Runner Slingers off far enough that they are no longer being microed, which is all he needed to do. The Squig Hoppers are going to swing around this way, get away from those Storm Vermin Halberds, while my Black Orcs come out of the woods to try and finish the job. Over here, my Boarboy Biggins are kind of getting shelled by these Poison Wind Globadiers, which is a problem, so I'm kind of pulling them away a little bit. One big boss still alive, 38 kills, okay, fine, not bad. Lord Skrolk is out here on his own chasing some archers, which means the other archers are going to start teeing off on him. I'm going to send over some goblins to try and slow him down as well. He has very little armor, so goblin archers can actually hurt him reasonably well. However, at the moment there is a giant tree in the way, so he's not really taking a whole lot of damage. But over here, the remainder of the Skaven army is gone. The center has been destroyed by the Black Orcs, Azhag, and the Squig Hoppers. Excuse me, he does have some Storm Vermin Halberds and a few Catapult Crew right over here, but not enough to change the tide of the battle, especially with Skrolk out here getting shot at. I'm bringing some Black Orcs in just to hit him from behind. More of my units are starting to rally, so my archers are coming back. Once again, you can't do enough damage to keep them off the field very easily. They break, take a little bit of damage running away, then come back and reform. Goblin Big Boss still just standing over there. What's that? Poison Wind Globadiers have been finally broken off the field, as have those Skaven Slave Slingers. He's got his Warp Lightning Cannon crew, but really the only effective unit left on the battlefield is Lord Skrolk. And now I am Spirit Leeching Skrolk because I've realized he doesn't have his damage abilities, so I don't have to worry too much about keeping Azhag away from him. Bringing up some summons, but once again, summoned Clan Rats do not actually do very well against Goblin Archers. He's chasing off my Biggins. The Black Orcs are wavering, but the support fire from the rear is going to take those Clan Rats down pretty quickly, and Lord Skrolk took a ton of damage in that engagement. Just a huge amount of damage for a Lord fighting against basic infantry and archers. That low armor and low HP really, really hurts him. And with that, army losses kick in, and the Skaven army shatters. So, I thought that was a very, very cool battle, and it really kind of highlights the strengths, some of the strengths and weaknesses of the Skaven and the Greenskins. The Greenskins have super solid infantry, especially versus the Skaven, which are mostly low armor, mostly low stats. Greenskin infantry just eats them for breakfast. See, I got 100 or almost 100 kills on every one of these Biggins and Black Orcs. Even the Goblins got pretty decent kills, and they're just, I mean, they're crap. They're Goblins. The Goblin Archers, likewise, very solid. 203 kills on one unit of Night Goblin Squig Hoppers. These guys are fantastic against Skaven because they're a cheap, specialized anti-infantry unit, and they even have armor piercing. So even against Storm Vermin, they can do some work. Against Clan Rats and Plague Monks and Skaven Slaves, they really just clean up. This unit got in bad engagements. It was charging a mid-tier infantry in the woods, and even so, it still got 45 kills. Azhag, also a great choice against the Skaven if you can keep him alive. If the enemy had brought the Lure of Ruin and had, been able to Howling Warp Gale him in range of the artillery and the slingers, he would have had a very, very bad time. But since they brought Lord Skrolk, Azhag could just pretty much ride around with impunity, so long as he was careful to stay out of range of the damage abilities. Skrolk didn't have him in this match, but in most matches he will. Needed a sip of water there. On the Skaven side, Lord Skrolk did some work, but really in this matchup, I don't like him very much. I don't think he's terribly useful. I mean, against the Greenskins, you're either going to be going up against a Flying Lord, or like Grimgor. Grimgor, I guess Lord Skrolk could try to snipe down, but Grimgor is also going to be in the middle of the fight, buffing all the infantry and doing massive damage. So that fight, you're going to lose very, very quickly. I would much rather have a Grey Seer of Ruin, or even a Grey Seer of Plague would work pretty well, actually. The Storm Vermin Sword and Shield actually very solid in this matchup because of their high armor and relatively high base stats, plus their large HP pool. They can do a lot of work against most greenskin infantry, and with the shields, they're not terribly vulnerable to archers. Greenskin archers are not armor piercing, so they do not do much damage against the Storm Vermin unless they can get flanking or rear shots. The Plague Monk Censer Bearers, interestingly, probably not a very good choice here. They're almost as expensive as Black Orcs, and they lose against Black Orcs pretty convincingly. So I might leave them at home, although this unit of Black Orcs did get wrecked. This was the unit that was fighting the Censer Bearers, but it was also fighting a couple of other units. So, this I'm very interested in. Where did these Skaven slaves get 32 kills from? It must have been goblins, but I wouldn't even have expected 32 kills against goblins. Anyway, the artillery, of course, did very, very well. The Plague Claws actually did better than the Warp Lightning Cannons. I think that was down to terrain. These Plague Claws landed a couple of really good arcing shots as I was coming in, and I think that really helped them. The Poison Wind Globadiers were a good idea, but they got shut down too hard to really make much of an impact, which is too bad. The Gutter Runners Slingers I wonder about. For the same price, you could have the regular Gutter Runners, which can move around, fire on the move, have 360-degree shots. Yeah, they have shorter range, but they also do more damage. Overall, I think I would take the regular Gutter Runners over the Slingers, because when the Slingers are moving, they can't fire, and so they're not doing any damage. So you could see my Goblin Big Bosses shut these two units down for most of my approach just by forcing them to move without even doing much damage to them. And I think that's really kind of a waste if your units aren't firing. So I think I would rather have the Shuriken Gutter Runners. Anyway, something to think about. But good game to Navigator, my opponent. Thanks for playing. Hope to see you on the ladder sometime. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you liked this content, more like this will be coming very, very soon. I'm going to be doing a lot more Mortal Empires, Old versus New World playthroughs, as well as, of course, my exploration of the High Elves that I've just begun. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.